hiding stream and hiding. So you're live.
Hey, we're live.
Yeah,
Amazing.
live.
All right, cool. So this is the first Terminus workshop. Got several familiar faces here in the room from the Atlanta Bitcoin community. Just for anyone watching online who's not familiar with this yet, this is Atlanta's Bitcoin hackerspace. We offer co-working for Bitcoiners and also workshops so that you can learn more about Bitcoin Lightning related technologies, how you can start building with these tools, and we hope to see more innovation happening on top of Bitcoin in Atlanta. So this is our first workshop ever, and we're doing this workshop series for the Legends of Lightning tournament / hackathon that's going on. We want to make sure that there's material, educational material available to people in our city to be able to compete in this tournament, build cool stuff. So today we're going to be talking about building user interfaces and user experience. So I'll just go ahead and say, if anybody here has any questions, just interrupt me at any point. Just don't be shy. Cool. So thanks, dude. Yeah, I think somebody went to the wrong door, but that's okay. Yeah. Designing an industry-grade UI. That was the name of this workshop, designing and coding an industry-grade UI. What is an industry-grade UI? I don't know. Alex told me I should call the workshop that because it would sound really cool. But I mean, I think basically what we're talking about here is that we want to, build a UI that kind of provides a good user experience, provides what people are expecting from their application. Hey, how's it going, man? We're just getting started here. We want to build a user interface that helps people use your product or service. It kind of behaves in a way that they expect it to, and that it kind of matches what are the norms in the industry right now. Like I think these kinds of things, people can be very opinionated about like what a good user interface is, and like I think that's kind of it's a little bit subjective because like there's things that like remain constant over time. Like you've got things like just like font size. Is it actually like readable and legible to people? And then you've got like contrast, like does the text pop off of the background? Nowadays I'd say something like responsive, like does it work on more than one device, right? So like these are things that are a little bit more objective and easy to measure. Like obviously you want people to be able to read the text and be able to see it and for it to work on multiple devices. Then there's things that are a lot more like subjective. Like, I don't know, I remember like 10 years ago, suddenly overnight, flat design became the norm. Does everybody remember that? Like, yeah, it suddenly became this like moral imperative that all of your designs like had to look flat. It was kind of weird because it was like, the one that really kicked off flat design was Metro, yeah, Windows 8. And it was so weird because it was like, this is the least successful of all the operating systems, like iOS and Android, and like no one's using the Windows Phone, and yet somehow like that became the norm that everybody had to imitate. I don't know why, but so things like that are kind of subjective, and we're kind of getting away from that now. Now it's like neo-brutalist, fad that's going on, or whatever. I'm not saying any of these things are bad. I'm just trying to like separate out that like there's like fads and trends and like things that things that people like and that are exciting, and that's one thing, and that's all good. And then there's just kind of like the basic principles of making something readable and usable and understandable to people. And also you got to think like over time things are going to change. Like remember when like responsive design. If anyone's not aware of responsive design, just like you have got a website and kind of adjusts itself based on what screen you're looking at. Like before responsive design, the little like hamburger menu, the little 3 lines in the corner was actually kind of confusing for people. I remember people like kind of not understanding what that meant, but now it's just kind of become the norm. So like as the industry changes, as technology changes, the things that people get used to and get comfortable with in an app change, and so you don't need to explain things. So that's all to just say that like we shouldn't think about like designing interfaces as being this like totally objectively scientific thing that you're going to design one user interface and it's going to work for every single human being on Earth. I think it's more important to think about like what product you're trying to build, who you're building it for, what you want them to be able to accomplish, where they're starting from in life, all of that, and then take it from there. So, yeah. Any questions so far before I like ramble on some more? All right, I'm gonna ramble on, Brian.
One question with
Yeah.
Wi-Fi.
Yeah, show the street right here.
Oh, here we go.
Yeah, so look at the upload official and then use that as the password and make sure to like format it like the same way it is there. I'm gonna take a swig of water real quick. If I can find there we go. Cool. So that's just kind of like my like philosophical rant about like how to think about interfaces. I want to talk like a little bit before we like dive into like actual like designing and coding. Just a little bit of kind of like how I see a modern pipeline functioning. So you've got designers, you've got developers, and it can actually be a confusing thing. I think thinking about like how to approach like especially if you're a developer, it can be confusing to think about like how do I integrate a designer into my workflow. What's the best way to do that? What role do they serve? And here's how I think about it. Like you can spend a lot of time coding something that you think is really cool and building it out, spending hours, weeks in production of this thing, and then show it to somebody and maybe it wasn't what they wanted. Like maybe it's useful to you, but it's not useful to them. And part of that could just be maybe the user interface isn't intuitive then, but also maybe the product itself isn't exactly what they wanted. So I think that like one thing you can do with design is you can iterate a lot quicker. So product to design, iterate quicker. You could be like, okay, I have this idea for this service that's supposed to do X, Y, Z. You could get a designer involved, or it doesn't matter. Just do it yourself. Just sketch it out. Like, okay, this is going to be the app homepage right here. You're going to sign in, and then once you get in, it's going to have these features right here that you're going to be able to do, and then show that to people and talk to people about it. And if you can show somebody a design of something, even if it's like rough looking, but if you can like show them an actual like presentation of this is what the product would do, and this is how it you would interact with it, you might be able to get feedback on that and not spend your time coding something that people aren't going to use. That's to say you could actually solidify the idea and get the idea more mature before you actually write code for it. So, again, that's not going to fit everybody's workflow, but that's kind of like one way of approaching it. So I think about things like a modern workflow. You have a designer involved. You probably start with something like Figma. Does anybody else here use Figma? Does everybody use Figma? Okay. So there's also Sketch. Anyone heard of Sketch? Yeah. That's the other kind of tool. Like, our tools change. There's nothing magical about it. Like it used to be that like Photoshop and Illustrator were probably what you designed your interfaces in. XD, yeah, Adobe XD. Then like Adobe started, getting into the prototyping game. Sketch is the one that I remember was the first one I remember hearing about. It was like, okay, this is specifically designed for building user interfaces. And then Adobe XD came out, and then Figma came out. So there's a lot of tools that you can work with. It's not like one of these is, magically the best one. I use Figma just because it has wide industry adoption, and I also like the ability for people to be able to jump in my file and like see what I'm doing. And I find that very easy to work with. There's also PenPot, which is very promising. It's kind of like open source Figma, but it's not quite there yet in my mind, but it's getting there. So, I would think of it something like this. You start, your design in Figma, and then, you might kind of like iterate on that, like show it to people, get feedback, polish it up, Then you might actually move into development, and that would be your front end dev. And like we think about like nowadays, you're probably, if you're a React developer or a Vue developer, you probably think in terms of components. I'm building something as a reusable component that I can import into all my different files. A lot of times, thanks to like Figma and stuff like that, we actually think about that on the design side in very much the same way. Figma has a component-based system, and you can you can build out, like, let's say a button, but the button is a component that has many different like variables. You might think of those as like props in React. And so, you could have a button that has many different states depending on like these different props that you manipulate. So the way that the designer builds things and the way that the developer kind of builds things are kind of converging. So you could actually do stuff like you could use a storybook. And that's one that I've been meaning to try for a long time, and I've actually like just recently gotten into, and it's pretty cool. You can integrate that into your front-end dev flow. And it's kind of neat because you can install it into your React project, and it creates this nice little library of all the components you've built. And then you can publish the storybook so that like the designer can go in and they can see your storybook that's filled with all the components you coded, and they can compare those to the designs and give you feedback. And then what's really cool is there's now a Figma plugin that lets you integrate published storybooks. And so you can actually in Figma see the coded component and see like how it compares to what you've designed, and you can like look at it all in one interface. So it kind of speeds up the collaboration between the designer and the developer in some ways. Yeah, I showed off a little bit today. It's but I'm mostly putting that as like informational, but I'm not. It's kind of like its own rabbit hole, like getting all that set up. But yeah, so and then once you have your React components, then you can integrate that with your backend processes. Like at this point, you've got like a UI library built out of all your UI components, and then the other developers in the project can then start importing those components. And hopefully, if it's built in a really robust way, they don't have to really touch CSS, and they don't have to touch worry too much about the design, because the component library just works so well. That's the theory. So. I think what I was going to do today is show you some stuff in Figma, like start off with building a basic like UI in Figma, and then we could actually kind of skip ahead over here and install a React app and install Tailwind and just do some basic styling, right? Try to recreate what we've done in Figma and then do that on the code side. And then hopefully everyone's a little less afraid of CSS when they walk out. Cool. Any questions, comments before I like dive into? Okay, cool. I'm going to actually get my projector turned on here and erase this stuff. What we really got to do is see if I can find the remote control.
Yes.
Yes, thank you. Shine in my eyes. Working on it. Oh, I think it's like, yeah, it's just warming up. Okay, we're good. Yep, that's me. I'm a golf ball.
Yet he plays no golf.
Oh no, I play all kinds of golf. I'm a serious golfer. Not just people just don't know that about me.
Mm-hmm. I thought you were looking serious. Nah, he's not.
Because I've invited him to play golf with me, and he hasn't come.
Okay, I'll play golf with you sometime. Play golf. Oh no, I lost my connection or whatever.
Ah.
How are we doing on the stream? Everything
It says 2, but I'm pretty sure that's just you.
That's okay, as long as it's available for people.
And now it says 1, so that would make sense because you disconnected. Or maybe not. I don't know.
Come on.
It says live viewers, Terminus BTC. Is that me?
Probably.
What are you streaming on?
Twitch and Twitter.
Did you guys see the Elon Musk?
Oh yeah, we've been firing like
So good.
It's fucking hilarious.
It's hilarious. The sing thing made me laugh.
Oh, dude, it's great.
Yeah.
I love it. He's so fucking
And
funny.
then his bio was a main twit.
Oh, really?
Yeah, main twit.
He fired like the
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 CEO, the CFO, and like the lady
meat
for
of
like
truth or something like
All the
that.
executives.
Like the lead fact checker. Yeah, right.
like the policy, like
The czar of truth.
Yeah.
The czar of
She was
truth.
the one that went on Joe Rogan with
Yeah.
Jack Dorsey.
Yeah,
It was
yeah.
Like every answer was just like, here's the lawyer explanation.
Like a good circle.
Oh, hey, dude, if you look in the comments, Peter is asking questions, so you can like respond.
Oh, he's in. Nice. Do we pose questions here? Yes.
Yeah, you can respond as Terminus. We're figuring this out on the go, folks. Okay, so I just put up the banner so there wouldn't be like an infinite window, but
It's funny. It says he's messaging, but I don't see him in the stream.
he's on. It's don't worry about the stream numbers. It's like
Oh, okay.
okay, cool. So can you see my Figma on the stream?
Yeah.
All right, cool. We're gonna dive into Figma.
I'm gonna make it full screen because it's kind of small.
Yeah, that sounds good. I'm actually gonna minimize that.
Yeah, make yours. Yeah, get rid of that. And make yours full screen.
What, like this?
Yes. Much better.
Okay. So first thing I'm going to do, I don't know how to get to my URL bar now, honestly. Sorry. All right. So first thing I'm going to do is just so that we're not like starting from zero, we're going to start with Christoph Ono's Bitcoin UI kit. So it's just bitcoinuikit.com. And then we're going to say duplicate on Figma. And so this is a Figma community file where you basically take your design file and you can just kind of like publish it. Think of it kind of like, GitHub for design files.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, so we're going to say he's published his community file here, and we can like kind of survey and preview some of the stuff here, but we're just going to dive right in and say get a copy. And Figma will actually, like pretty much everything nowadays, it's just like Electron or Chrome or something under the hood. So, you can download the desktop app, which I do because I use it, every day, but you can also just use it in a browser. So what I've done here is I've taken it and I've cloned it to my drafts here, and I'm going to rename it, call this Terminus Workshop UI, and I'm actually going to share this. So I'm going to say anyone with the link can do it. And you can, if you actually are having trouble seeing it, I'll post it in, I'm going to post it in Telegram, Brian. Maybe you could like actually publish it on the Twitch stream too.
I can do that.
Thanks. So I'm going to say, here is the Figma file we are working live right now. That way people on Twitch can actually get to it if they need it and all that. So, all right, cool. So we've got this Terminus Workshop UI, and you can go in here, you can see all the different artboards. Like there's different like pages here set up for different things. For backup, automatic cloud backup, manual backup, sending Bitcoin. So these are all like different flows for different types of like send scenarios. And then we can go in here, and like I was saying about how like components and stuff, well, like if I click on this button right here, you'll see it's like surrounded in purple because it's trying to tell me, hey, this is special, it's a component. So if I right click on this, I can say main component, go to main component, and then you'll see it took me to this page here called form elements, where he has all these different component variations laid out. So, very similar to like how you might think of a React component. It has like content, style, size, active, and like, you'll notice that those values change. Like on the right-hand side here, these values change depending on which one of these I'm on. So it's like the same component, it's just got many different states depending on the props that you pass to it.
I think they're variables.
I think of them like variables.
Yeah, I think they're called variables.
Oh yeah, I think you're right. Let's see. Variants.
Variants.
Yeah,
No
yeah.
Good Node is with us today.
Hey, awesome.
Yeah.
Welcome, No Good. So, let's see. All right, so we've got a Figma file here. Let's try and make just like a cool interface. Let's make like a fun wallet. why don't we just, to be like simple here, why don't we just like start with like the home screen, like the first use home screen. So we got this thing here. It says Bitcoin wallet, a simple Bitcoin wallet for your enjoyment. I don't know, what kind of wallet do we want to build? Like, what kind of vibe do we want?
A Taro wallet.
You want to build a Taro wallet?
Yeah, for shitcoins.
Okay, let's build it.
All right.
What should it be called?
Token wallet.
Token wallet? Should we just call shitcoin?
Tallet.
Tallet? Yeah, there we go.
Tollet.
Tallet. I think we should make this one. Let's just like go full on dark. Let's just go full on dark mode for this one. That way people will know that like our shitcoins are good. So there's already some like colors set up in here, like kind of again as like variables. So I'm going to say light foreground. I'm going to go ahead and switch this to dark foreground, and then I'm going to say light background, and I'm going to set that up to dark background. And then what else are we going to do? Let's say light neutral 3 should be dark neutral 3, light neutral 7 should be dark neutral 7. What else do we have here? Let's say light orange. I think the colors are really the same between light and dark mode, but let's just set it. Okay. And then I don't really know what this thing is. Why don't we just say that's like, hey, how's it going, man?
Hey,
Pull up a chair, man. Join us.
yeah.
So let's see. I'm going to set that to neutral 3, maybe. All right, cool. So we went ahead and we like set our colors there, and we have now like converted this thing to dark mode. I kind of feel like we need like a different like font treatment here. So I'm just going to go, just to make it easier to say, look at this. I'm just going to go to fonts.google.com. And since we named it Tallet, I'm going to, wait, no, that's the wrong field. I'm going to say Tallet, and then let's try and find, let's just blow it up the size. I don't want these scripty things. I'm kind of feeling like a kind of rounded sans serif, so I'm going to just like turn all this crap off. All right, cool. So now let's just like keep going until we find a typeface that speaks to us. I feel like I've used Nunito a lot lately, so I kind of want to avoid that. Nanum Gothic. I don't know. Why don't we go with that? Or remove Quicksand, maybe?
Is there any? Have you guys defined like a default Bitcoin font in this design guide?
Well, right now it's set. I mean, you know,
Sure.
we have like a default font for like the UI kit, right?
Yeah.
But I don't feel like there needs to be like a default one for like, you know, Bitcoin as a protocol, right?
It's correct on Google Fonts. I like that because it's rounded in. There's a lot of families in that font.
Another designer here with us.
Yeah, nice.
It might be on the UI kit or on the actual on Figma already. Okay. So let's see what happens when I set this. See, and also there's like styles predefined here for like, you know, title 1, title 2. So let's see. No, it's not. Well, we can also install our own fonts, but I'm just going to go with the Google font today, just like in the interest of time. I'll go with this. Let's see. Where's the one I was just on? No more Lotto, I'm sorry. It's not 2010 anymore.
Right there.
Me too. Hold on, I was down past me. Nano. Yeah, so I'm going to try Nano. It's probably already set up in Figma already.
Is he sharing on cursor?
I'm trying to find this part. We're in Figma right now.
Are you shooting that Big Dev's Telegram group by chance?
I should be.
Ooh, Dosis. There we go. I like that.
Not, it's okay. I can get you the link to that, and I can also get you the Figma.
Awesome.
What's your preferred communication?
Honestly, I think I'm going to also take this.
662.
I'm going to break it. Oh my god, we're missing some like font weights or something here. Hold on.
Sorry, it's color blue. 478. 678, 478.
67662 3473.
662 3473.
Sorry, I just like took us down an annoying font replacement rabbit hole. All right, here we go. Delete that. I think this needs like a more like purple vibe. So I'm going to move that. I'm going to give it like something purple. Or no, let's make it green. How about that? Yeah.
It's like Robin Hood.
And I feel like it needs like something different up there.
A synthwave kind of vibe going.
Yeah. Actually, let's just see on the community files. Like, let's just see if there's any like fun community files. Here we go. Oh, I just opened it twice. Yeah, there we go. We'll just borrow this person's asset. The whole thing. So I'm just copying from another Figma file. I'm just going to paste it in. And so like these are in frames right now in Figma, so they're like they sort of have these like auto sorting properties. It's like telling it to sort like from top to bottom, and then we can adjust like the spacing on it. So I'm just going to paste it directly into this frame. And then I'm going to move it to the top of the frame. Yeah. And then I'm going to get rid of that since I'm building a Bitcoin wallet.
Clear Bitcoin shitcoins.
It's Bitcoins on Bitcoin. Clear distinction.
Maybe we could load the Bit devs bucks.
Oh yeah.
Anyone wants the devs bucks? Send me a Taro address. I got to. I mean, it did 100 of them.
And then we'll say made with
Really?
For real.
I don't know. That also feels kind of passe. That feels very like 10 years ago. Why don't we like make this a broken heart? Yeah, made with a broken heart in Atlanta. All right, cool. So yeah, now we've created like a fun little like screen here for our wallet. Now let's actually try to. Well, does anybody think is there anything else we need to add to this before we like try to implement this in React? All right, cool. Just holler if you have any like suggestions. I'm gonna take a swig of water before I start reacting. All right, so we have our fun little Taro wallet now. Let's get a React project going. So I'm just going to go open a terminal here. The instructions I'm following here are all on create react app.dev. So like I'll post some links, like some kind of show notes after this if anybody wants to follow on our steps, but we're just following instructions on the site. But just because I have like multiple versions of Node, I am going to switch my version to the latest stable release. If you don't have multiple versions of Node on your computer, then don't worry about it.
Or install edit.
Yeah, I think a lot of devs in this room probably already have their Node and React environment good to go. But Like I said, if you want to follow along with this, feel free to do so, and just stop me if you have questions or anything like that. I'm happy to help. Try and blow that up as big so we can see it. All right, cool. So I'm on the version of Node I want. I'm going to do npx create React app. Actually, first thing I want to do is actually like cd into like the right folder. So I'm going to say cd. Then, okay. I'm in the folder that I actually want to create my React app folder in. I'll say npx create React app. Then we'll call it Talit.
Steven, are you going to put this in a GitHub repo?
I sure can. I mean, I can just publish what we're done at the end, or I could publish a gist that I could publish a gist at the end too that has all the links and all the instructions. Cool. So I have npx create React app Talit, and then we just sit here and we just kind of wait for it to
Download the whole internet.
download the whole internet.
Seriously.
Alex keeps telling me about this asshole Webpack on screen. He keeps telling me all about the Next.js thing.
TurboPack.
TurboPack.
Yeah. I heard it's pretty good.
Word on the street is that it's going to make the whole web faster.
Blazingly fast.
Blazingly fast.
It'll blaze us into Web 3.
Right past Web 3 to Web
It's Web
5.
5, yeah, that's right. A quick primer, or since you're talking about
Yeah.
npx React and create React app, we're currently working on a template that will come out before the next workshop called LAT template, Lightning App Template, and it'll be this out-of-the-box way to clone a repo and have all the things you need in it to be able to just spin up a Lightning app.
Awesome.
So npx, we create React app, Polar for your backend, Bitcoin D, all that. So just want to prime that.
Create Lightning app.
So
That's awesome.
it just finished installing. And, if you're new to React, it's basically saying, okay, you want to cd into the directory that we just created for you. And then you want to run npm start. I'm actually going to switch over now that we have the folder structure created. I'm going to move into my IDE. And this is, let's see, I'm going to go open, and let's say Talit. I'm going to open this as a project. So you could do the same thing in like VS Code or like whatever your IDE is. But this is basically the folder that we just created and the other one. And I'm actually this IDE has its own little terminal at the bottom of the screen. So I'm just going to use this one here. Actually, it just occurred to me that that's probably incredibly small and hard to read on the screen. So maybe I should actually use this one because I can actually blow up the font size in this window. Yeah, I'll do that. All right, cool. So let's do that. cd Talit and then npm start. And then this is where you start to feel the laptop warm up in your lap. Basically, it just said is, hey, there's something else running on localhost 3001. Do you want to run it on another port? I said, yeah, sure. So we now have this loading running at localhost 3001. It's basically just running a little web server for anyone who's not familiar with this. And if I go into my IDE here, I can go to the source folder and then go to app.js, and then tell it that I don't care about ESLint because I'm not a designer, not a shipping production ready code here, y'all. All right, and then I'm just going to change this. Up, save, tab back, and then as you can see, it changed the text. So we now know how to edit our basic React page that we've set up here. Okay, so our next kind of thing is we want to, I think I'm just going to very quickly install a React router just so that, actually, we're probably not going to get into multiple pages here, so I think I'm just going to skip the React router because we only have like one little screen that we're building. We only have one screen that we're building here in Figma, so we don't really need a router today to be able to say, go to this address for this page and this other address for this other page. So I'm just going to skip that if everyone's cool with that. So let's just dive into Tailwind. This is my preferred way of interacting with CSS. Anybody here love CSS? I'm the only one here who loves CSS. You do? You like CSS? Oh, thanks, bro. Appreciate that. lot of developers don't like CSS, just because, it's strange. It doesn't behave the way you would expect if you're like, used to like writing a script with like an if-else statement or a while loop or state something like that. It just doesn't behave the way you're used to. A lot of designers hate CSS too, but I like it. But don't get me wrong, like managing large style sheets, for anyone who's not aware, it's cascading style sheets. And this is basically what makes on a web page, what makes the button orange and what makes the button dance a little bit when you move it around, when you hover over it, all that kind of stuff. So it's cascading style sheets. And managing large style sheets can be kind of a pain. And also, as the industry has changed, we don't really like. We used to have this kind of philosophy in the web development industry that like you want your style sheet, you want to keep your website's code, like all the text and like the layout of the site, you want to keep that separate in your style sheets, right? You want to be able to change the code that controls how it looks independent of the actual content. That was the general philosophy. But now that we've gotten into this like component-based workflow in the industry, regardless if you're using React or Vue or some other library, you're probably building in components, right? So, now the kind of modern thinking is it's actually okay to just keep your styles kind of there with your components. Just because that way you don't have to manage like a ridiculously large style sheet. Everything that you need is right there in the component. So that's why I've gotten like super into Tailwind. And we're going to go to learn about that. We're going to go to tailwindcss.com. It just occurred to me, my laptop isn't getting power. So this is going to like, here, what did I say? There we go. That's all it is.
Oh.
There's a button right there.
Look at that.
Yeah.
Fancy.
Imagine that, having to turn on your power strip. So we got rapidly build modern websites without ever leaving your HTML.
You talked about now splitting the CSS out to the different components.
Mhm.
So or maybe this is what you're going to say next. How do you manage the common components that you want consistent through all the different components? Display features.
You mean kind of like if I want I want the same font across the entire app.
Or the same shade of orange for everything. Or something,
Yep.
So that if you wanted to just change it a little bit, you could change it in one place and have it affect all the components.
Yep, I can show you that.
Okay.
Absolutely. Yeah, so there's a way that we do that. So Mel's question was about like, well, how do we if we want to just have one variable that represents the color across the whole app, how would we do that? And there's a way we can do that with Tailwind here that I'll show you. This is the basic gist. It's kind of weird. Again, if you told me that, I would like this a long time ago, I wouldn't have bought it, but it's actually real cool. You just got these pre-built classes that represent, different things within CSS. Like I want it to be 24 units wide, or I want the font to be a medium weight. And you just apply like tons of classes, and it looks messy, but like once you get into it, it's actually, it really starts to click. So we're just going to say get started, and they give you some install instructions. We're going to go to the framework guides. And for a lot of different web frameworks, they have instructions pre-built for that. So we did create React app, so we're going to go there. I kind of have a lot of these memorized at this point, but I just want to show this to you so that you know how to find these on your own. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to go we're going to open up another terminal window here. And once again, I need to switch over to the correct version of Node. Don't worry about this if you don't have Node versions. Okay, so I've got my new terminal window. I'm going to say npm i-d for dev dependencies. I'm going to install Tailwind CSS. I'm going to install the post CSS package, and then I'm going to install auto prefixer. Post CSS is just for like compiling CSS, and then auto prefixer is like, sometimes in CSS there's like vendor prefixes, like, oh, Firefox has this one, thing they need in front of this, this particular style attribute to make it work. It's like that kind of stuff. But you don't need to worry about how that works really too much. It kind of should work if we just follow the instructions. Okay, so now we're going to download the entire internet again. 6 high severity vulnerabilities. I'm not going to worry about that right now. We're just building some styles here. We're not like shipping shipping something that's, production ready. All right, cool. And then the next thing that we need to do is, what it has done, if you're not familiar with this process, is it's gone in, it's downloaded some more node modules for us. So it's just put those in the node folder for us. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to say npx tailwind css init/p. And it said created a tailwind CSS config and created a post CSS config. So as you can see, it's created these new files for us right here. And that's cool. I'm going to open up my Tailwind CSS file. And what this file is basically doing is we can put some variables in here, like for colors or fonts or styles or things like that. That's kind of built leading up to what Mel is asking us about. The very first thing that we have to do that's very important, though, is we have to tell it which directories are going to which files are actually going to use Tailwind styles. So just for now, to start with, we're going to tell it basically to find our source directory. And because I'm feeling lazy, I'm just going to copy and paste this from the Tailwind site. But basically, what we're saying with this line here is find anything. Let's see, I think I can blow that up a little bit. We're saying find anything that's in the source directory that ends in JX, JSX, TSX, or TSX. So our app.js will work there. And I think that's all we needed to do. Let me just double check the setup instructions. Oh, this is important. We need to go and we need to add these Tailwind lines to our index.css. This is going to import a lot of the Tailwind styles. And I think we're good. Okay, so just to be safe, I'm going to kill this thing that's kind of recompiling our app over and over again. I'm just gonna hit Control-C, kill it, start over, just to make sure that it fully has understood all the changes we just made. And now we can start applying Tailwind styles here. So I can go in here and I could say, I could actually say, and let's actually make it so that you can see all of this together. So I can actually add styles onto this live and we'll see it refreshing automatically. So I can say last name, font, let's say, okay, so you see it became bold, and then I'm going to say text -4XL. And you're probably wondering, well, how do I know what to type? And it's just because I've used Tailwind enough to where I remember it. But you might not know this coming into it. So you can use the Tailwind docs for this. So let's say I wanted to add a border around this text. Now I know how to do this, but if you don't know, I might go here and go to the Tailwind docs, and I might say, you can hit Command K and just search, or you can hit the search button. And I could just say border. Then I find something right. Okay. And it tells you the classes, and it's saying, hey, if you put this class border2, it's kind of like saying this in CSS. So I'm just going to do what it tells me to do. I'm going to say border2. And then you see it added a border. And then I could do the same thing. I could say, well, how do I add padding around my object here? And then it tells me, oh, very simple. All I have to do is put the letter P and then just put a number next to it, right? So I'll go back here and again, just so you can see it. See, and it's add a number, and then I can add a margin around it. And I could also add, say, border. I could change the color of it. So I could say, I don't know, I'll just make it red. So that's how I can very quickly go in and just start throwing down some Tailwind styles. So we basically have our app. We've got our React app running, and we have our Tailwind styles, and now we can actually start building out what we have in Figma here. But before I do that, I'm going to see if anybody has a question and take a sip of water. Any questions so far? Like anybody like want clarity on anything before I go further? Or?
I missed the first part. When did you used to create the talent quality?
This is Figma that we're in right now. And basically what we did is we went to the bitcoinuikit.com
Oh, okay.
and then we hit duplicate on Figma. And you can publish community files on Figma. So think about this kind of like a design file, kind of like GitHub, how you might publish a code project. You can publish design files on the Figma community. And we cloned it, which gave us our own copy in Figma here. And you can get a Figma account free, so it's free to use. Oh, you're already in there. Cool. Yeah, I see you there. And basically what we did is we took like the main screen and we just started editing things. We started editing, swapping out the colors, and we just kind of edited it from there. Coffee? Upstairs in the kitchen. You gotta, I didn't make a pot since nobody said that they wanted any before the workshop, but there should be a Keurig machine up there if you want to use that. Cool. So let's actually get into trying to code this thing. So what I'm going to do, like you can see, it's kind of like this setup here for this like kind of like iPhone looking layout. So I'm going to go to my React app here, and I'm going to go into Dev Tools. And I do this on my Mac with Option Command I, but if you are not into memorizing hotkeys, you can go to Inspect. And it'll just show you this, and it'll take you into the Dev Tools mode. And I can go into my elements and like look at everything and like see what classes are applied to them. I'm going to hit this responsive button here, and you can go up here and like you can now just like adjust the screen size. I'm going to hit the drop down and go to the iPhone XR, and I'm going to tell it fit to, let's see. I wanted to kind of get a little bit bigger than that, so maybe get like a 75%. Whatever. We'll roll with that for now. So yeah, we basically have it like set up in like an iPhone layout right here, and that'll help us kind of see what we're working on. All right. So let's go and let's try to build this home screen. So I think the way I'm going to approach this, what I think I'm going to do is I'm actually going to open up this thing in Figma a little bit, just so that I can like hop between my tab between my different windows a little bit easier. So I'll be working in the Figma desktop app, in my IDE, and then in Brave browser. All right, so I'm in here, out of Figma. So first thing we need to do is, I guess, adjust our background color here. So I'm going to, actually, maybe what we'll do to start is I'm just going to delete all this stuff and see how that looks. Okay, so I pretty much purged everything on the page. It just says test now. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to change the background color. Let's try that. So I'm going to go in the class name here. I'm going to say BG Black. And you know what I think I'm going to do actually? Well, actually, we need to make it so it fills the entire page, right? So I'm going to say width full, height full. And let's see, I need to, something is, oh, it's this root thing. Yeah, okay. So what I'm going to do real quick here is just go to my index.css, and I'm going to say root, and then I'm going to, I think I can say, what is it? It's apply, I believe. Yeah, apply. And you can actually just drop Tailwind classes right here in your CSS file, and it'll apply it and convert it to CSS at the end. So I think I can say width full, height full. Let's try that out and see if that works. Did it throw any errors at me? No, it did not. Oh, I need to do on my body class too. This is just like kind of how, CSS troubleshooting. So you get to see me do it live. So you need, the problem is that height, HTML and body are not set to be like the full like width of the page. So I kind of want to make that happen. So let's just go here. I promise we won't spend the whole session inside of this CSS file. Apply with full height, full. Okay, there we go. So we now have an HTML tag, a body tag, a root, and nav tag, and they're all like filling 100% height. All right. That may not have been the best move. I'll just be honest with you. We'll sort it out later. This is like quick live coding. So, all right. We got that good to go. Next thing we will do is I think I want to change the text so that we can actually read it. So I'll say text-white. And now we can actually read our text again. Once again, if we don't remember something, we just go here and we say, like, how do I do text color? And it'll tell you some basic kind of classes you can use to apply color to your text. Okay, so what do we need to do next? So why don't we just add in some of this text and just see what happens, just to kind of rough out what we have. So we have something that says, for all your Terra assets, just going to like, just for like the basic gist here, I'm just going to rough it out and put these in paragraph tags. Create a new wallet for an existing wallet. All I'm doing is I'm just copying and pasting everything from the Figma file just so that I can rough it out. And if anybody has questions, again, just holler or chime in. I'm like moving quick here because we do this a lot. So now we have kind of all the text from our file in there now. Let's start making, maybe we put the picture in there. So here in Figma, what I do is I have this group set up, and I think, I'm not sure if these are vectors or not. Yeah, it looks like it's all vectors. So what we can do is we could put export this as a PNG, or we could save it as an SVG. So let's just try an SVG first. So I've got the thing highlighted here in my Figma file. I'm going to go ahead and define an export. And it kind of defaulted to PNG. I'm going to try SVG as well. So like Figma actually allows you to like export things at like multiple resolutions. So like, like let's say like you have a Retina device, like different devices are going to have different like amounts of clarity and resolution to it, right? So you might say, okay, I want to deliver this picture at a lower resolution to this device, but this other device gets like the super, super high res version because it's like an Apple Retina device. You could actually declare multiple resolutions of your images. I'm not going to worry about that for today. I'm just going to say SVG, and then boom. And I'm going to give it actually a nice name. I'm going to say the Talent logo. I don't know. Export. It's going to like put it somewhere. Let me just say GitHub design, and then I'm going to say, and I'm going to put this, just export these directly to the public folder. Okay, cool. So I have that now. And then, let's see. Now it should be in our public folder, import talent logo. So we can actually go in here and just say import. I always get a little confused on the syntax here. Okay. I think we're good. And then I basically just imported the logos in SVG file. And then what I'm going to do here is I'm going to say image source, and I'm just going to put in there. And alt tag, we would typically put text in here. So this would fall back if the image failed, or if this for accessibility, if the person was blind. Because the image doesn't really provide that much like value, it's just kind of decorative, I'm going to leave the alt tag blank. So that's kind of accessibility guidelines. If the image doesn't communicate any information, you just leave the alt tag blank. Okay, let's see how badly I screwed that up. You attempted to import, which falls outside the project. Oh, screw it. Oh, I see, it can't import it from there. But honestly, I'm just gonna like don't really think we need to import that. Just kill that. Oh, it's there. It just doesn't have any freaking styles on it. That's all. Last name. So now I'm going to say width full, then height auto. Let's see. Ah, it's broken. What it turns out. I'm going to feel stupid about this later. Shit. Oh, wait, I forgot. You don't need the public. There we go. Duh. Okay, cool. Yeah, I forgot. When you're using React App, the Create React App template, the public folder just kind of becomes like when the server actually serves it, it just kind of becomes like the root of your domain. So, okay, cool. So we have our logo in there now. I'm going to say width full, and now it should be just filling the width of that container. And then let me refresh this page because yeah, there we go. You know, honestly, this thing is a little bit misaligned. I think the way that the image comes, so I don't know, it's kind of annoying, but we'll deal with it later. So we have our fun little thing there. I think we can take this text out because it wasn't in the design mockup. Actually, I'll just say, okay, so we have all of the text and all of the image. Now we need to think about like how we're actually going to get this styled. So first things first, I think we should switch out like the typeface and all that. So this was Dosis, right? So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go back here to Google Fonts and let me just find Dosis. And what are we going to do? Yeah, here we go. All right, what weight did I use? I used regular weight. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this thing, I'm going to say select regular 400. And so basically what I'm doing is I'm building kind of like a font kit here on Google. And so I've got Dosis right there, and I'm going to say I want to add it to my CSS via import. And I'm just going to copy and paste this. And I'm going to move it into my CSS file. And then that should import the font. But you know, obviously, if I go back to my React app, it's not using the font. How would I use that? So what we're going to do is we're going to add it to our Tailwind config here, and to do that, we're going to just look it up on the Tailwind website. So I'm just going to search. I'm going to say font family, and it gives us these kind of like pre-built fonts that we can use, right? Well, if we scroll down here, it should tell us how to add it to our theme file, how to add a custom font. So let's see. Yeah, there we go. So what we can do is it says you can go to your tailwind config.js and you can add these, add your own kind of like font classes and stuff. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to, it says theme font family. So I'm going to add something here. I'm going to add an object, and then I'm just going to override the sans one. And how did Google tell me to do it? They said, copy this right here. I'm I'm going to add it as an array because that's how Tailwind likes it. And I need to add a comma there.
No, I'm just trying to see how it works.
I think I'm good, except I screwed something up. What did I just break?
Receiving, what's the Twitch address for this?
Oh, twitch.tv/terminusbtc. My screen's still looking okay on the stream?
Yeah.
Oh, error in source index.css.
Eric, sorry.
So that was,
I have a Figma question.
yeah.
Pretty simple, but how do I, like, I'm not sure the difference between grouping and framing something. I want to put that B in front of the column.
Okay, yeah, so like frames are, grouping just kind of like keeps them all in a group. Framing, it can do a couple of things. One thing it can do is it can like it thinks about the objects and like what their position is relative to the frame. So you can apply rules about like how they respond to the frame. Like frame rows, do the objects like stick to the center or do they stick to the edge?
Like CSS.
A little bit like that, yeah. And then you can apply auto layout, which is very, very similar to CSS Flexbox. So you're trying to move to be there. So probably what's happening is the group or frame. I think you can just drag them around because they're within a group, right? Yeah.
Ah, there we go.
But if they weren't in a group, if they were just in a frame together, you could set the frame to auto layout like top to bottom or left to right. But yeah, I think because they're in a group, you can just drag them around. It's not a problem. I'm going to try and just take that out and see. Okay, so I broke the app.
Oh, lines to a grid.
Oh, cool. So the chat from StreamYard goes to Twitch by default.
Yep. So you can manage them all in one place.
That's awesome.
I don't need to do it right now, but I'm just curious.
See that right there? That same thing. And then to the top. And the second.
So text. So I think I'm going to be just like I want to make sure. First, I just want to get this font big enough to read, but I also want to match it with the design. So I'm going to go here and it's going to say like, okay, it's 96 pixels. So I can actually match that over here in Tailwind. I can pass an arbitrary value through the class and I can just say 96 pixels. There we go. Now I want to inspect this and I want to see like what font it's actually using. So if I go to computed and go to font family, it's still using the default one. So let me see what I'm doing here. I have my sans font family. What if I go back and I say font and then text sans? I broke it. Oh, when all else fails, let's read the manual together. Oh, font sans, my bad. Sometimes they want to use the font in Tailwind, and sometimes they want to use the word text. There we go. All right, so we just successfully pulled in a font from Google and declared it on for our like apps kind of branding. Okay. So let's compare what we have here. We have this in Figma, and then we have that on the actual app. I feel like this is a little bit smaller here. So I'm gonna actually just like define it with. First of all, this thing just being like off center is driving me crazy. I'm just, like it's just I can't.
Design range.
Yeah, I can't handle it. Hold on one second. Here, what I'm going to do just so I can see this, I'm going to temporarily apply a stroke around this thing. So I'm going to say stroke. Ugh, no, that's not work. Okay. I'm going to group all that. Okay, then I'm going to go to my talent logo frame. No. I've got some weird stroke effect there. Okay, I'm going to frame this. So this is like this kind of stuff can get annoying dealing with stuff, especially when other people like set up stuff different in a way that you're used to setting up. But okay, so I now have that frame. I'm going to rename that as my tower logo. I'm going to apply a stroke to this so I can see what I'm doing. There we go. So now I can actually see the box, and then I'm going to like reposition it in my red box now. That looks somewhat centered. Then I'm going to turn my stroke off, and then I'm going to re-export it. Then I'm going to refresh this page here. And I feel like it didn't change, but it's looking like there. Oh, I know what I need to do. I need to say click.
I was just moved just about to say it's the content.
Thank you. That
No,
might,
you got it before I could even say anything.
that's probably what my deal is. Yeah, there we go. That looks way nicer in the export preview. Please replace existing files. Just obliterate the old files. There we go. That's what I'm talking about. It's a nice centered tarot coin, whatever the heck. All right, cool. So now let's match the width. Again, you'd have to think about this if this were like going to be responsive and work at different screen sizes. You'd have to think about like how you want to style this, but just for today, just for the sake of getting something out the door, shipped within the next hour, I'm going to say just 224 pixels. That's my budget. All right. Yeah. So I was going to say width 224 pixels. Then I'm also going to say MX Auto, which just centers it. And then, yeah. Okay. So we're starting to look a little bit more like our design here. If I just tab between those two, like it's getting there. I think I want to enforce that I don't want, I want to make sure that there's like always like a nice margin around everything, which, you know, this is kind of like really hugging the top. So let's go to here and let's say P8, which will enforce. You may have noticed it kind of bumped down the logo, basically made it so that yellow area, there's a margin. So there's a nice little, or it's padding really, but it's kind of keeping everything from touching the edges there. Okay. Now let's add this thing right here. This is like what? 24 pixels. Just to use the tailwind style, as I said. So I could just say text 2XL, and that would give us what we want. There we go. And I'm going to pass. So here's where we get into like color and stuff. So this is dark neutral 7 with color here. And Mel this is kind of what you were asking about, Mel, like how would I define color values? We can do that. We can declare as variables. I'm going to go to Tailwind, and we're just going to double check the syntax, but I'm going to say like text color. Okay, and it gives me all these pre-built classes I can do. Then if I scroll down the page, it will tell me customizing your theme. And so it gives us a sample of our tailwind.config file. And it says we can add a color section in the theme extend part object, and we can pass in our own custom color variables there. So I'll say here, I'll give it extend, I'll say colors, object, and we'll call it, what is it? Dark, neutral, 7. I'm just going to match the color styles I'm seeing in the Bitcoin UI kit. And let's just snag that value real quick from Figma. Pass in a little hex code. And then I should be able to reference this now. Now that I've created this, I can reference this anywhere I want to, anywhere where I have Tailwind style set up. So I can now say text dash dark neutral 7. And it is now gray. It now matches what's in Figma. But just to kind of demonstrate, the changing functionalities, let's say I'm like, I'm feeling red today for whatever reason. So taking the hex code for red. Then when I go back, I change it out. So any place that's going to reference that variable is going to use that. But,
So if you have a whole bunch of different components, different CSS files, they're all going to reference back to this Tailwind config.
Yep, that's correct. And we can also start doing that too for let's see, the buttons and all that. I'll tell you what's starting to bother me a little bit. Let me just, before I forget, let me put the text color on here as well. And let's check the size. So that's going to be 15. So around 15 to a text to base. So it's actually probably good the way it is, but I'll just say text dash base. And that will get our size looking the way we want it. I want to kind of spread this stuff out because you'll notice that it's really spread out here and in the Figma file, and it's not on the design. So I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my main app container here. And I'm going to say flex and turn it into a flex box. And yeah, it's all crazy now. So next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to say flex column. So it will flex basically from top to bottom as a column, as opposed to as a row. And then I think we should be able to say space between. Nope, no, we can't. Let's double check it. So let's just go here to Tailwind, say flex. And then, let's see, what is it? Is it flex?
Space between.
Yeah.
I think it's justify other content.
Yeah, thanks, dude.
Excuse me.
Yeah, there we go. That's what we're looking for. Justify between. Cool. So even when you do this all the time, you don't memorize everything. So being good at coding UIs is really just about knowing where to look in the docs, Right. So now we've spaced everything out. All right, cool. You kind of can't see. Yeah. All right, cool. So now let's actually get some buttons going on here. So now we're actually going to create like a new component. I'm going to say, I'm actually going to make a folder here inside of my source, and I'm going to call it directory. The directory is called components, and I'm really just making a components directory just to kind of like keep things clean. And then I'm going to make a new file here, and it's going to be called button.js. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a constant, call it button. This is just basic kind of React syntax for anyone who's not familiar. Then I'm going to export it, export default button. And I need to make a return here. It's going to return basically some JSX, which is basically just like HTML markup in JavaScript. And I'm going to put a button element here. And all right, cool. So I have a button component. Hopefully it's not broken. I'm going to go back to my app.js. I'm going to import my button. And then I should be able to say button, should be able to reference my component now. And there we go. You can see that we have a button there called my button. So next thing we want to do is I want to set it up so that my text here will actually pass through to the button. So I think we can do that by saying wallet, and then we can say, we can put properties called props in React. And I think we can just say props.children, or remember right. Hey, it worked. So now we have a button called create a new wallet. Okay. So the next thing we need to do is we need to style it and make it look correct. So we have this this shade of like toxic hero asset green here. I'm going to add this to my variables. So I'm going to go here. I'll call it hero green. So you got the little green right there. I'm going to go back to my button. I'm going to give it a class name. So I'm going to say BG Tarot Green. And there we go. And then let's check Figma. It was, I think, black text. Yeah, black text. So I will go here and I'll say text. Now we have one text. Now I'm going to go back to Figma and I'm going to check the auto layout on this button. And we're going to see it, and it says, okay, it's got 20 pixels of padding on the x-axis, so that means on these edges here, and 19, which I'm just going to round that to 20 on the vertical. So why don't we just, and it's got 10 things of spacing between, like if you have an icon in there. So I'm just going to set that. I'm just going to copy that. I'm going to say, if Figma says it's 20 units, 20 pixels of padding on the x-axis, and on the y-axis, I'm just going to pop that in there. And now we have it. It's starting to shape up. I can go back up here where to check the corner radius, the way that the designer defined it. It says it's a 5 pixel corner radius. So again, I'll go into Figma, or into my code, I'll say rounded 5 pixels. And now it's starting to look a little more like it. What is the font size on this? 21 pixels. Okay, here we go. So now it's starting to look, I think it looks pretty much like it does in Figma, honestly. It's starting to look better. Okay, so now we have our restored existing wallet, which is also a button. So it's like, okay, well, could I make that a button as well? So let me just change that, make that a button. Okay, so now I have 2 buttons, and that's looking kind of nice, except that the one in Figma is like some kind of like secondary version of the button that doesn't have the same, that looks different than the one above it. So what if we could tell this component, like, okay, there's two different types of buttons depending on what I want. So I'm going to go back in here and I'm going to say, why don't we create a property on here? And we'll say style equals outline. Or I think this one is free, actually. There's nothing there. Yeah. Let's say style equals free. And then, and so that hasn't done anything when I load in here. So the magic is going to happen, though, where I'm going to actually tell the component to do something different. So what I'll do is, what if we could build our classes based on how we want to look? So I could say, let classes equals, and I'll just make it a text string. To start with, I'll just cut everything out of there, put it there, and then I'll tell it to get the classes from this variable. Okay, nothing's broken. That worked. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to say if props dot style is equal to filled classes plus equal. That's just for anyone who's not aware, that's just syntax where I'm not going to override this variable's value. I'm going to add on to it. And I'll say text Terra green. So we actually don't want the background to be Terra green. We want the text to be Terra green. I think everything else can really stay the same. And then we'll say else classes plus equal. And I'm going to take the background Terra green and the text black. Put it there. So basically, we're saying that the button is always 20 pixels of padding. It's always rounded. It's always got the same font size, but it has a different style. And based on the style, we're going to apply these different classes. Okay, so didn't do what I expected it to do. What did I do wrong? Oh, free. I didn't mean to say filled. I meant to say free. There we go. So now we have one button component, but we can have multiple different states or styles for that button component. Now, let's make it I don't know, let's make it interesting. Why don't we make it so that if I click the button, it kind of does a bounce or it blows up in size or something. So what if I could say, okay, how would I transform something? How would I scale something? So I could then say, scale 105. So basically scale it to 105%. So if I did that, I just applied it on there, it's now going to get a little bit bigger. It's hard to see, but it probably scaled up a little bit bigger. What we don't want is, we really want it to do that only when we press it, right? So why don't we look for CSS pseudo classes, and we could set it to hover, focus, and active. I think we probably want the active pseudo class for this one. So what we do is we would append the word active here, save it, and now you see it only grows in size when I click it. And then what if we did something else? What if we said we applied a transition, and we could say, so transition in CSS is basically saying that if the CSS property changes based on something that's happening, how do you want to transition between that? Do you want to transition smoothly between those or not? So I'm going to apply this class called transition transform. Now it's hard to see, but you notice it kind of has a bounce because it's smoothly scaling in size when I click the button. So we now have a basic thing, and let's just focus on kind of getting this finished up. So The main kind of thing I can see that's different between what we have in the browser and what we have in the Figma file is just the grouping. Like these buttons are kind of grouped together, and these kind of the title and the subtitle are kind of grouped together as well. So let's just get that set up. So I'll go to app.js here. What I'm going to do is I'm actually going to put some of these components, like kind of group them together in their own little divs. Okay. And now you can kind of see that these kind of stick together. Like even though it's like the way we define the flex box, it's spacing everything, like spacing it out vertically across the page. Now the title and the subtitle are grouped together, and these two buttons are grouped together. And one thing I want to do is I really want these buttons to be wider, so I'm going to say class name width full. And then I want to say I really need to apply a class on here that says width full. There we go. All right, boom. So we now have honestly, I think we've kind of done it. We've basically taken, designed a quick mock-up of the screen here in Figma, and then we've built it in React, and then we now have this screen here that looks pretty close to. I'm sure we could go and nitpick it with a fine-tooth comb, but we've pretty much replicated the same thing here in the browser, just kind of using Tailwind and just quickly applying it to a React project. So that's kind of like my workflow for kind of building out a UI and then implementing it in code. Yeah, that's what I got. Any questions or anything? Or? Thank you, Mel. It's like a poetry reading. Everyone has to like. Well, so how's everyone?
Has anybody ever been to poetry?
We touched up on this. I'm just gonna say, when you're able to see the coding for CSS in Figma, what's the benefits of what you did right here, like going back and forth and like just copying the code from Figma?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I think what you're talking about, let me make sure we're on the same page here. I think what you're talking about is like if I go to this button and I say inspect.
Yeah.
I mean, this is certainly helpful. Like if you wanted to, it just depends on your workflow, Okay. Like if I wanted to, I could go and say like, I could actually, like one way I could do this is I could create an actual CSS file here called button.css. And I could actually copy and paste some of this. Let's see. I could actually, save it in a CSS file here, and it would be like a little sidecar file that would sit right next to my button file. And then I could go up here and like import the CSS file into this file. So that would totally work. It's just a different way of working. Some people don't like to get into all of the like, when you start getting into CSS, you start getting into like complicated things like having to like deal with like lots of nesting. Like, well, what if you have like a button with a span inside of it? How does that look? And then like, how do you have like, what if there's like a button with a span with an SVG icon inside of that, right? And so you start having to like build out all of these cascading things. And some people like just being able to go into the button component and just be like, instead of having to like write all of these cascading things in CSS, I can just type out the classes right here in the same file.
I see.
So it's just kind of a different way of working. I think like certainly having like a sidecar file like this is certainly an improvement over the old way of doing it, where we would just have like a massive style sheet for the site. Or we would have 10 style sheets that would all feed into one style sheet, and then
On one page would be like 4 lines of code.
yeah, exactly. And so just to be clear, there still are like style sheets, like massive style sheets involved. So like, well, it's all being like dynamically added because it's a React app. But like, if we go in here, we'll probably find in here somewhere. Like, if we really go through it, we're probably going to find like a style, like an actual Tailwind style sheet. So
if you do the build and then build,
exactly. So like it does I see what you're saying. If I actually build it as opposed to doing the hot reload. So there are massive style sheets involved here. It's just that the difference is that like the massive style sheet is just like a list of utilities of like these like low level utilities. Like this class makes it bold and this class makes it bigger. And all we're doing is we're just referencing these utility classes as opposed to like every single website on the planet has to have its own massive style sheet that's completely customized for its brand and brand standards and all of that. We're all just kind of using the same utility style sheet and picking what we need for that.
Okay.
I don't know if that might have gone deeper down the rabbit hole than you wanted, but
No, I was following along a little bit.
but yeah, the basic gist is that instead of having to write your big long style sheet, you can just define it here within the same file. This button component, just to give you like an example, like I've actually been working on trying to implement the UI kit in React, and I want to start looking at like how I would get it into React Native. But I actually have a button component that I'm building out, and it's kind of like the button component that I just showed you how to build, but with like a lot more stuff. And so it starts to get like a little bit more complicated because we now have a button, and then we now have a label component for the text, and then we have like an icon component. So just that single component can actually start to get a little bit more complicated. And so it's a little bit freeing being able to just like, bang out all the CSS right here in the same file because you can kind of see it all. It's like all of these, like this whole stuff here is just Tailwind styles. And I'm saying, oh, if it's a large button, give it these Tailwind styles. If it's a small button, give it these Tailwind styles. If it's a free button, outline button, whatever, give it these styles. Yeah, I mean, if anybody wants to, use this stuff, this is helpful. Like, and here's the thing: if you don't see yourself as the kind of person who wants to get like really seriously code UIs, there's pre-built stuff you can use. There's Material UI. There's I feel like there's another big one.
Throw it all the way back to
semantic
Bootstrap.
UI.
Semantic UI. There's all these UI kits you can use. Tailwind is like if you want to like really get into like customize the UI exactly for how you want it. But so having said that, there's other UI kits that you can use. You should pick the toolkit that feels right for you, depending on where you are as a developer or as a designer. A lot of times for Material UI, you can find Figma files that match that kind of stuff. So as a developer, you can use Material UI. Your designer could be using the Material UI Figma file. But yeah, if you need any of these assets I've referenced today, like I said, you would go to bitcoinuikit.com. Another cool one is Bitcoin Icons, and you can download the Figma file for this, or you can actually like go onto these and you can copy and paste these as SVG directly into Figma. And there's an NPM module for React and Vue to where, as a developer, you can install these directly into your apps, and you've got an icon kit directly for it. So, yeah, those are all tools available to use if you need them for your UIs. I'll take what I did and like try and like compile this into like a basic GitHub repo for everybody that I can share later. I'll just put like a README file that includes the basic instructions for what I did of like, hey, here's how to create the React app, here's how to get Tailwind installed, and I can publish what we worked on today to get to a GitHub somewhere so you can see it as well. So yeah, that's what I got.
What you did for the button when you created like a separate component,
Uh-huh.
you can do that for anything on your app, correct?
Yep. Ideally, you would have components for virtually everything. Like
Okay.
what you would want to do is like the way I would approach it is that kind of like anything that can be reused should be a component.
Okay.
So like if you envision it being used in more than one place in the app, it should just be a component. And so like, for example, like this is the button component in Figma, and it has all kinds of different variations. So what you'd want is everything contained within this like purple dash area should be a single React component. And then anything that tells you whether, hey, is it a big button? Is it a small button? Is it an outline button? Does it have an icon? Does it not have an icon? That's just a prop that gets passed into the component.
Okay.
And then the same thing here, like for this toggle, you would want this all to be one toggle component, and then you would have props that you would pass in based on, is it activated? Is it deactivated? Is it big? Is it small? And then at that point, after you've coded all that, you just have this complete component library, and you should be able to hand that over to another developer, and they should be able to just reuse all the components, and they don't even have to worry about how to code the actual way that it looks.
Sticker sheets.
Sticker sheets?
Yeah.
Interesting.
And sticker sheets and design text. I've heard.
Yeah, I remember when it first came out, it was like they were calling it atomic design, 10 years ago or so. And it was like, you have atoms, and then you build molecules, and then you build compounds. And now I think, now it's just kind of turned into design systems. And one thing they're calling it in storybooks is they call them components and stories.
Oh, okay.
Let me see if I can pull up the storybook that I've been building. Let's see if I can get logged into my Chromatic account. Might be that I need to go to Chromatic. Yeah, so I've got a Bitcoin UI library. I mean, it's this is super, super demo mode, but so basically these are React components that I've been building based on what's in the Bitcoin UI kit. And then these are stories that I tell about it. And I can say okay, this is the outline story. This is the free story. But when I run it locally on my local dev environment, I have this thing set up to where I can toggle all of the different properties. So I can go and toggle the size property and say, oh, make it small, make it default, and then I just see the components reconstruct themselves live. So my kind of vision is I really want to get it so that you can open up the Bitcoin UI kit and basically be able to just click on a button or go at least to the form elements page. You should be able to go to any of these and just click on them, and then go to the sidebar here and say view in storybook, and then it would show you the actual React component. And then one day you'll be able to just, if I have my way with this, you'll be able to just import it directly into, a developer will be able to just import it directly into their React project or their React.
Is it kind of similar, publishing it, the assets, publishing it in the library, so you have just drag and drop, pull from the assets page?
Yeah, pretty much. So the designer would be able to see, okay, does this match the React component or not?
I see.
If something changes in the UI kit, it needs to be updated on the React side. And then the React developer would just they'd be able to go to Storybook and see oh, here's all the design assets I can use. And then they can just import it directly in the React project.
Okay.
So on their side, on the designer side, they would have a cool Figma component, but that's kind of linked to this React component.
Yeah.
And all they have to do is they could just go kind of how I did, import button. Yeah, well, I already have it here. And it'll just be import, BTC UI form toggle or whatever it's called.
Mm-hmm.
And they would just be able to pull it right into their code and start running with it. And that's cool because then the developer doesn't even have to mess with the CSS or the tailwind or anything like that. All right, I'm getting straight up. I'm getting ready for lunch, so I think I'm gonna kill the live stream. How you feeling, Brian?
Sounds fun to me, man.
All right, hey, thanks everybody for tuning in to first Terminus workshop. Next weekend, Brian is doing.
Yeah. So is it next weekend?
Yep.
Cool. Yeah, next weekend, November 5th. Looks like it's the same time, 11 to 1. We'll do the same location. And the gist of it is we're building a template. I think I mentioned it earlier but somebody is online and didn't hear it. We're building a template for a Lightning app. So you could essentially, with that completed, clone that and run a couple of very simple commands to get an entire application stack locally up and running. We'll probably use something like React and React scripts, and then Polar for the back end. But if we have time, I also wanted to walk everybody through how to clone and build from source, because I think it's an extremely important skill to learn. So definitely come on out to that. And then that'll be the second in a stage of 3 workshops. This one, mine, and then Alex will be running one to basically take that local dev environment app that you build and ship it to production. So definitely stay tuned and hope to see more people out next time too.
Right. Hey, real quick, is the mic set up right for the blue snowball thing? Weird thing to say. All right, cool.
Yeah,
All right,
I asked people and they said they could hear us.
all right. And we sounded pristine, everybody. All right.
I don't know if I asked that question.
Okay. But awesome. All right, great. I'm gonna leave the studio later, everybody.
Broadcast ending.